Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope you're having a good one. Today we're going to be tying a variation on a red butt soft hackle. At least that's how I've got into it anyway. Pretty simple, but it's a fun pattern. Of course you can change the colour if you want, it doesn't have to be red. Greens, purples, blues, whatever takes your fancy. But today we're doing red. Tail's just pheasant tail. Got some red floss, copper wire, Peackock Herl, and we've got some soft hackle. This one's in the Greenwell's colour from Whitng. The hook's a Kamasan B405. Tying on a size 12 just makes filming a bit easier, but go smaller, go bigger. But yeah, I hope it's a handy pattern. I hope you enjoy it. Happy tying. Get into it. Righty, thread today, Semperfli Nano Silk 30 denier or 80 knot in white to begin with. A key thing to remember with floss, and this was a recent lesson for myself, as I've only sort of started tying floss patterns recently. But if you're using a light coloured floss material, use a light coloured thread underneath it. Once they're wet, the colour of your thread underneath really affects it, so if you're using a dark thread, it's going to show through a light floss. So I'll start with a white nano silk to begin with. You could of course finish it off with the white, but I like to have a dark head on these. So once we've put the floss on, we'll change it out for a black thread. But get your base layer on there and then we'll crack on. Right, next up is our tail. I'm using pheasant tail fibres, and you want it to be a similar length to the shank of the hook. Give or take anyway, and you just secure that in on top. Just check you're happy with it, it looks pretty good. And we'll just secure it in. And I like to just tie it in along the top. It builds up a bit of body for when you've got that floss in. Okay, don't have to go all the way. Keeping in mind we're just going to be putting the peacock in there at the top of it. Next up will be the copper wire. Alright, next we're using the copper wire. This is 0.1mm from Semperfli. Again, light with the floss, play around. Find colours that work for you, that your local fish like. But I will tie that on so that it is on the opposite side of the hook shank from myself, and that means when we put the floss on, we're going to give it a counter wrap. And even the floss, though the floss is stronger than say pheasant tail bodies or something like that, I still like to counter wrap it, it's a bit of strength. And we'll just bring that back to the start where we're going to start tying in the floss. We're using the Semperfli floss in red. It's a whole range of colours with these. I've got greens, purples, blues, blacks, whites, browns, yellows, olives. Really can have a good play around with them. So you're going to tie it in, and again I tie it in up here as I'm building up the body as I go. It just helps to make that taper, it gives you a bit more to play with. I do 2 wraps and then you can pull it back a little bit rather than snipping it off, which saves you some material. And just tie it in down over the top. And just try to keep those wraps nice and evenly spaced. Or touching, you just want to try to keep the body as flat as you can with the thread, as that's going to help give you a smooth body with the floss. The more bumpy it is, it's just, yeah. I mean, ultimately the fish probably don't care, but if you want a nice looking fly, it's the way to go about it. And then we're just going to start wrapping this forward, and again that light body underneath with the white thread means once this is wet it's going to keep that nice vibrant red colour rather than going dull, a bit boring. Probably still catch fish though. And just build that forward till we get to about 2/3. And then just tie that in. and snip away the tag end. Now again, next step is optional, but for the point of demonstration and because I prefer it, a little whip finish. You only need to do a couple loops because we're going to be tying over this with our black thread. In this case I've got 18/0 classic waxed rather than a nano. It's another one from a Semperfli, and it's a really nice thread, really low diameter. Yeah, I like it. I like the thinner threads. I feel like I'm not building as much bulk. Once you've got that tied in, snip that off and we'll go on to the Peackock. Alright, Peackock Herl. I think other than Nano silk, this is probably one of my most used materials, but we'll tie this in. If it's got any sort of curly damaged bits at the tip of it, get rid of them because they are going to just make a bit of havoc with your tying as they'll snap away. So tie that in, get rid of the tag ends, and then we're going to start wrapping it. I like to keep my thread up close to where I'm wrapping as it kind of guides the herl to stay nice and close together, which gives you a really nice little body. And then we're just building that forward, maybe one more. We just need to make sure we've got enough room once we've tied this in to tie our hackle in. That looks pretty good. And just get it nice and secure. Again, that thinner diameter thread just gives you a bit more wiggle room to put a couple extra wraps in there to tie stuff down, and you don't build up as much as you would with, say, 6/0 or 8/0 or 12/0. Just handy. Cool. Next we'll go into the ribbing. Right. Next we're going to put the ribbing on here. Again, it's that 0.1mm copper wire, but you could use thicker if you wanted. I like to keep it a bit thinner though. Don't know if there's any particular reason, it just, yeah, I feel like the thicker wire is just a bit too much. So you just want to evenly wrap that up the body of your fly into the Peackock. I just caught a bit on this side, but you just kind of want to wiggle its way through. Like if you think if you're wrapping a woolly bugger, kind of similar motion, just prevents you from trapping too much of the Peackock herl. And this is just going to strengthen it up as well until we get to the front, and you can just wrap away and just get it nice and secure. Again, the joy of that thin wire is you can just actually snap it off. You don't have to worry about blunting any of your scissors or anything like that. Just got a little bit of feather there that I want to get rid of. There we go. And almost there. Just do the hackle. Alright, for the soft hackle we are using that Whiting's 4B in Greenwell's. I really like the colour on this, that black in the middle with the browny orange on the outside and the tips. But to prepare it, get rid of all the fluffy bits on the end. Just pull them back so you got it looking like that. And then tie it so that the curve of the feather is facing down towards the hook shank, and we'll just get it secured in. Sometimes that tip moves around, but that's alright. I like to just pull it up a bit so we can really get the scissors under. Sorry, got some of my Peackock stuck on the scissors, and just snip that away. And from there, if you want, you can use your fingers, but this is pretty fiddly, so I go with the hackle pliers. Just give your fingers a little lick so that you can get them sticking back a bit. And then we're just going to wrap it around. Just move that up out of the way a bit. Just keep preening them back, and they'll fold back. You want them pointing towards the tail. You'll get a few wayward little rogue fibres, but generally as you wet your fingers and roll them back, they'll come under control. From there, we're just going to secure that stem. Sorry, it looks a bit funny. I'm just with the lighting where I need to have it in the camera. I've got a Throw things around a bit weird sometimes, but just make sure that's secured in and get rid of it. Then we can whip finish. I like to give it 2. You can put some head cement on there or some UV resin. I'll often use the UV resin, the black one. Makes it nice and dark on the head, or you can just use whatever you got. Generally, for the flies I'm fishing with, I just give it a couple whip finishes. I'll probably lose them before I lose the material anyway. Alright, there we have it. One variation or take on a red butt soft hackle. Pretty simple. Few steps, but simple. Got the pheasant tail fibres for the tail. Red floss from Semperfli and their 0.1mm copper wire. We've got that Peackock Herl and the Whiting's 4B and Greenwell for the hackle. Again, it's a useful pattern, one you can play around with and put a bunch of colours in. See what works for you. You don't have to use Peackock Herl either. I think it's a great material, which is why I use it. But try some natural fur dubbing, hare or fox, squirrel, or whatever floats your boat, or some ice dubbing or something like that if you want a bit of flash in there. But yeah, it's a cool pattern, a fun one, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Happy tying. I'll see you next time.